Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. I've been wanting to do a video like this or a series like this about like an album spotlight, just an album that I loved and I want to share more information about and just really deep dive into one particular album. The one that I wanted to start with was this Yezda Urfa, Boris. You guys probably heard me talk about this album a lot. It's one of my absolute favorite prog albums of all time. But today's a special day because today we released a reissue of it on our very own label. I'm going to go into, first I'm going to talk about the album and the band and how it was formed and how it came about and information about that. And then I'm going to talk about just kind of like the steps it took to repress it, the things that we did, all that stuff, tell you more information about that actual repress itself. But if you've been following the story, you've been following the label, you know that this has been a highly anticipated thing. This record hasn't been reissued in like 15 years. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. We're really excited about it, and it's available on our website right now. The link is in the description. But let's dive into it. This is Yezda Urfa, one of the rarest albums in my entire collection, and I have some pretty rare stuff. This is known to be probably the rarest and most sought after U.S. prog album, and one of the most sought after prog albums in the entire world. But U.S. wise, you know, a lot of prog albums aren't from the U.S. as much as they are like the U.K. and Germany and stuff like that. But the U.S., this is just this gem of a record that is pretty underrated. A lot of people don't even know about it. So it was formed in Chicago, Yezda Urfa. They kind of started out, several of the guys went to high school together and played in like an acoustic band together for a while. And then they kind of morphed and picked up some more members and turned into Yezda Urfa. They didn't play out live a whole lot, but they really tried to hone in and perfect their craft. And they wanted to record kind of like a demo. And so they decided that they would get some recording time. They got somebody to kind of bankroll the whole thing, and they went into Universal Studios in Chicago to record this over a few days. And so they went in, they knew they didn't have a whole lot of time because, you know, the less money you have to record, the less time you have. And so before they went in, they really just hammered it out, tried to make sure that all the songs were perfect. And when they went in, they recorded this absolute masterpiece. You know, you hear influences from, you know, in their interview, which I'll talk about this later. There's an interview in the booklet of the reissue that we did. They talk about all their influences. There's a ton of them. I mean, you can definitely hear some Yes in there. You can hear some Gentle Giant in there. A lot of them, you know, they said their influences were, you know, Frank Zappa, PFM, King Crimson, stuff like that. And you could definitely hear those influences in there. But while, you know, you can hear all that stuff, it's a very, very unique album. And it's absolutely like, if you like prog and like synthesizer solos and just absolute out there space rock, it is unbelievable. And I am thrilled to own an original copy. This is an original. These go for $2,000 to $3,000 if you could ever find a clean one. This one's like near mint. It's beautiful. It took me a long time to find this record. So, but anyway, so they went in and they recorded the album, and just they recorded it, overdubbed a little bit, and then mixed it all in a very short span of time. You know, Phil Kimbrough is kind of the jack of all trades. That he plays guitar and mandolin and a bunch of other things on the album, and he kind of arranged a lot of it and tried to make sure that he kind of pushed everybody along to get the thing going. And, you know, he said in his interview that they would have liked to spend more time, you know, mixing it and all that stuff, but they didn't, you know, they didn't have a lot of money and a lot of time to do it. But that's crazy to me because when you listen to it, it is just through the roof. It's incredible. I mean, in my opinion, the recording is great. It sounds phenomenal, and it really is just top notch. And they created just such a beautiful, unique recording. It's incredible. And so after they did that, they released they pressed 300 copies, which, if you know, like with rare records, 1,000 is rare. You know, something that's pressed 500 is really, really rare. But 300, anything under 500 is almost impossible to find. And so 300 copies is kind of unheard of, just such a low quantity of records. But they kind of wanted to do it to have something that they could send around to radio stations, record labels, maybe venues. They didn't play a lot of live material, but they kind of consider themselves more of a studio band. So anyways, they recorded this 300, and then, you know, they stuck together for a while. They did some things here and there. There's another album called Sacred Baboon that has some of these songs on it that was re-recorded later on. But this album just kind of hung around as being this really incredible, mysterious, just wild prog record that only the deepest record collectors knew about. And so this was probably when I started my label a few years ago. I was thinking about, okay, when I start this label, what kind of music do I want to do? Who do I want to contact? And there were a couple albums high up on my list. Yezda Urfa, Boris was one of those albums I really, really wanted to do a deal with. It was criminally out of print. It needed a repress so bad. And so I just kind of searched for the members of the band. At that point, I had not put anything out. I hadn't released anything at that point, so they didn't even know if I was going to do a good job or whatever. And I just kind of got up with them and I told them what I wanted to do and how much I loved the album. And at that time, I didn't have an original copy. I was an admirer of the album. I'd heard it online. I didn't even have a reissue, but I'd heard it online and I'd listened to it several times over the years. And it just was one of those, just this monolithic, huge grail record that I was just unachievable to have a copy. And I knew how bad I wanted one, so I'm like, I'm sure other people would want to have this too. And so as I spoke to them, they said, you know, we'll think about it. You know, we've thought about maybe trying to figure out how to do a reissue of it, but you know, a bunch of different labels had reached out to us, and you know, we haven't decided on doing one yet, so we'll think about it. And so I kind of gave them my pitch, like, this is what I want to do. This is the steps, blah, 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 blah. I want to make sure, like, anytime I'm reissuing a record, I want to make sure that I do the best possible job to represent that album, because this isn't going to be pressed now and then repressed 3 years from now. I mean, you know, this is not going to be repressed for another 20 years probably, if that. And so I want to make it, you know, this generation of people that are buying this record to have the best possible example that represents this band and their music and everything. I want you to be able to open it up and it sound incredible. It looked incredible. I want there to be a booklet. I want you to be able to tell your story about this album and all that stuff. So I told them all that and didn't think much of it. Like, I didn't expect them because it hadn't been reissued in a long time, and I know a bunch of other labels wanted to do it. Maybe a week later, this all happened so strange because I didn't tell anybody I was wanting to do this album. Maybe a week later, this guy calls me up at the shop. It was late at night, and this guy called, and he said, hey, you know, I live in Asheville, which is just a couple hours down the road from me. And he said, I have this really rare prog album called Yezda Urfa, Boris. And I was curious if you were familiar with it and if you were looking for a copy. And I was like, heck yeah, I'm looking for a copy. It was so weird. One of those things, it's strange that would happen in that sequence. And, you know, we kind of set up a time where I would drive up there and meet him. I drove up there and met him, and he had 2 original copies, which was crazy. And he had some other records I was looking at as well, but he said, I want to keep one for myself, but I also, you know, I'll be willing to sell one. So you pick which one you want. So I'm sitting there, and I've got both copies in my hand, and I'm looking at them. I'm trying to figure out which one I want. They're both really clean. I picked the one that was the cleanest in my opinion, but they're both really clean. And as I'm holding both of them in my hand, trying to decide which one I'm trying to get, I'm sitting here thinking, what are the odds? I mean, how many people have held 2 copies of this in their hand, trying to decide which one they want? It's such a rare record. And then my phone rings. I look down, and it's Mark Miller, the guy who's kind of like the representative of the band. And I was like, what the heck? He's calling me right now. And then I get on the phone with him, and he said, yeah, you know, we've talked about it. We've decided we want to do it. So it was just a weird, I know for me, it was a special moment, but it was just such a strange thing to happen. Like, I'm sitting there with 2 original copies. And I think I told him, I was like, you are not going to believe this. I'm holding 2 copies in my hand right now. And he was like, what? But it was really a special time. But anyway, so I got the album, was super stoked, and this is a beautiful copy. It was in the shrink. Sadly, I had to take the shrink off to scan it for the reissue, but it was worth it. But yeah, beautiful copy, first press, near mint, beautiful. So what's even cooler than that is a couple weeks later, they sent me the original master tapes. So these are the original master tapes to Yezda Urfa Boris. This is something that you don't normally see, you know? So I thought I would share. Pretty cool. I'm not going to tamper with them in any way, but I'll just show you kind of how they're housed inside here. And we took these, we sent them off to Salina, Kansas, where Analog Productions is and Quality Record Pressing, and they mastered the tapes. They sound incredible. So we did the masters there. They cut the lacquers. It's all AAA, which in the you know, analog world is all analog, straight from the tapes to the lacquers, to the plates, to the pressing. So everything is all analog like they used to do it. There's no computers involved. There's nothing, no digital step, nothing like that. And so, you know, I'm not always able to do that because sometimes you have to, with a needle drop, it's trickier. You can't do that. But when you have the tapes, I'm trying to, every release I do, for it to sound as good as it possibly can. So since we had the tapes, one of the big reasons why they were wanting to do another reissue is because the previous reissue in 2009 was a needle drop. So it was not straight from the tapes. And so they thought that their fan base would appreciate an all analog reissue. And they said, can you do that? And since I knew, you know, Chad Kassem and the folks over there at Quality Record Pressing, we'd already had conversations about this type of thing because we were doing dry water. And I said, yeah, we can definitely do that. And we made it happen. So it does sound fantastic. Really, really thrilled with the way that it turned out. So we have the original master tapes. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you the reissue. So like, you know, all the steps of pressing a record, it gets a little complicated. There's a lot of things you have to think about, like the jackets, how you want them to feel. And so I just went off of when I get a record and it's like an old school record and it's just this really flimsy cover that's just not done well. I think, man, that kind of sucks because an original feels really beefy, like from the 70s. Like you get some of these private press records or even like, you know, Beatles records or Zeppelin records or whatever. Like it has this feel, this vintage feel, this quality. It's quality. And now it seems like a lot of records are pressed and it's just like people throw them together cheapest way they can. And there's no intention with how the quality feels. So even though this doesn't sound any different, the cover doesn't sound any different, it is this really nice, thick, that's what they call tip-on jackets. This is how they used to make them from the 70s. If you get a copy, you'll know what I mean. We did the same thing with dry water. Top quality, in my opinion, the best jackets you can get from Stoughton, which Analog Productions, that's what they use for all their releases. And they feel vintage. They feel really good, nice quality. So, I mean, that's how they feel. I mean, they're solid. Love that. We did it. It's completely the same. We added just the Noble label at the bottom, but other than that, it's a complete replica of the artwork. And then we did 2 different colors. We did just a standard black vinyl, and then we did the red, which this is the solid red. This is limited edition. We did 1,000 of these, but actually, I think it ended up being 970. You know, when you get a record pressed, you order a certain amount, but you never get that amount. You either get less or you get more by like 30 or 40. You know, so if you order 1,000, it might be 1,020, or it might be, you know, 970. So these 970 on this red vinyl, and then here's your little hype sticker that'll come on there. But very cool. And then this is the inner booklet, which I designed this. I wanted to make it really good. This is really thick quality. This is a picture of them back in the day that I don't think this had previously been released. And then there's interviews with 3 of the band members, Mark Miller, Mark Tippins, and Phil Kimbrough. You know, you got the pictures of the original tapes. You have, these are some of their concert ticket stubs from back in the day. These are all like studio pictures that Phil Kimbrough had, that he sent me, that had never been shown before, to my knowledge, and to his knowledge. And then just more interview. They talk about the formation of the band, all that stuff. And then this is the back cover, has some like concert flyers, this sweet picture of the van, which the van, you know, this picture is like one of the most common pictures of them sitting in that mail truck. But this is the outside. Look at that sweet logo that was on the outside. Just very cool. Anyways, so that's the booklet. That came out incredible, but you know, it's a very cool story. The record is incredible. If you like prog rock, it is, I mean, it's just the prog rock album. It's unique. It's got its own flavors. There's like folky aspects. There's heavy aspects. There's really heavy organ work. There's synthesizers that are just mind-blowing. It is fantastic. We're really proud of this, and this is something that worked on for 2 years and finally got everything just exactly the way that I wanted it, and I think the band's going to be really pleased with it. We also did these t-shirts, which are awesome. These are on the website as well, and then we'll be throwing in these stickers while we have them. It says, "Keep honking, I'm listening to Yezda Urfa's 1975 underground prog masterpiece, Boris," on it. We got a batch of those made up that we're going to throw in with the orders. So I think we have almost 1,000 of those. We'll be throwing them in the first 1,000 orders, you know. So anyways, we're really thrilled about it, and want you guys to enjoy the record. It had not been on streaming or anything like that. We talked the band into putting it on streaming, so they control all the streaming and stuff. But yeah, it's cool. Finally, I'm glad for it to be out. But hopefully that you know, this video has teased you enough to make you want to at least go listen to it. And on a side note, we do an exclusive release. We try to do one every month. This month is Boulder Dam Morning. This is from Garrison Records. They also do the really thick jackets. And this is our exclusive pressing on gold and black. And this also has a really nice booklet. This is a really heavy rock record from Florida. I think they only made like 200 or 300 original copies of this one as well. And these are really expensive. The originals are like $5,000. Really rare record. And it was just extremely heavy, hard rock. I mean, if you like stuff like Black Sabbath, it's brutal like that. It's really, really killer. So that's on the website as well. We only did 500 copies of this, but that's what we got going on this month. But I just wanted to do a spotlight on Boris. It's just, it's one of those things. Some of these records, I hear them so much because they're on my label that sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear that for a little bit. But Yezda Urfa is one of those records that just, I can listen to it over and over and over and over again, and it never gets old. It's just such a fantastic album, and I'm honored that our name can be on it. So thank you guys for all your support with the label. If you want a copy, the descriptions of the link is in the description of this video down there. Grab one, support what we're doing if you want. And yeah, thank y'all. We'll see you next time.